Lex Carter's heart pounded inside the suit, though the material didn't seem to allow sweat or discomfort. It clung to him perfectly, not tight but secure, like a second skin designed just for him. Every step he took was silent. The floor didn't creak, and even his breath sounded muffled, as if the suit filtered it for efficiency. The voice in his mind repeated itself, calm and without emotion. Neural calibration complete. Host Lex Carter, designated as primary Judicator Zero-bearer. Judicator, Lex muttered aloud. Not expecting a response, Judicator-class suits were deployed to enforce Precursor Era stability protocols. You are now linked to the last operational Judicator frame. Lex didn't fully understand the terms, but the words last operational and precursor rang louder than anything else. Everyone knew about the precursors. They were the civilization that came before almost everything else, builders of megastructures, makers of vanished technologies, and rumored destroyers of entire species when balance tipped too far. A few minutes later, the Zalaxi stormed in, the lab filled with humming weapons and hushed voices. Lex didn't raise his hands. They were locked behind a translucent barrier that the suit had formed on instinct. Do not resist. One of the guards said, more cautiously than threateningly. Lex shook his head. I didn't try to activate anything. I just opened the vault. I didn't know it would bond to me. Dr. Tilvallen, head researcher and now emergency station authority, stepped forward. His face held a strange mix of fear and scientific awe. You bonded to a relic of extinction. That suit is a symbol of judgment, Tilvallen said. It was used to decide who lived and who vanished during the Silence Wars. You cannot simply wear it. You are it now. The room went quiet. No one moved. Lex could feel every sensor in the room pointed at him. The suit seemed aware of them too, was adjusting, scanning, analyzing. Let me take it off, Lex said quickly. We can deactivate it, right? Tilvallen gave a slow, uncertain shake of his head. No. The Judicator frames were designed to bond permanently. Removal is fatal to the host. Lex blinked. Wait, are you saying I'm stuck in this thing? Unless it chooses to release you. Which it hasn't done in thousands of years. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. Zalaxi emergency broadcasts flagged the event as a Tier 0 cultural threat. Other species picked up the transmission, and within an hour, the story reached the Galactic Concord's central network hub. Human activates precursor weapon Judicator suit online again after 5 millennia. Earth's recklessness endangers galactic peace in under 24 hours. Over 60 civilizations filed official protest messages with the Concord Tribunal, demanding Lex Carter be detained and the suit removed, even if by force. On Earth, leaders scrambled to manage public image. Some media outlets declared Lex a hero of discovery. Others warned he had doomed humanity's reputation in the stars. Debates ignited across colonies about the morality of holding forbidden technologies and whether Earth's admission into galactic society had come too soon. Back aboard the Zalaxi station, Lex sat in a containment field, calm but uneasy. He stared at his hands, still encased in the suit. They didn't look dangerous, but the eyes of every guard on him said otherwise. The suit's voice spoke once more. As if aware of the storm, Lex now stood in. They fear what they do not control. But you are not here to destroy. You are here to decide. Lex exhaled. I didn't sign up for this, but deep down, a quiet certainty settled in his chest. Whatever came next, he would face it not as a criminal or a symbol but as a human. And humans, as history had shown, never backed down when it mattered. The Galactic Concord's primary chamber, carved into the side of a hollowed moon orbiting a binary star, had not seen a full emergency session in over 3 centuries. Today, however, every seat was filled. Holographic images of the human Lex Carter wearing the dormant but unmistakable Judicator suit were displayed in the center of the circular chamber, rotating slowly as leaders and envoys debated. Most were not calm. "This cannot stand," declared Ambassador Rhys's of the Liventar species, her voice sharp and metallic. The last time a Judicator was activated, 9 civilizations were lost within a decade. "We cannot let this human carry a weapon older than the Concord itself." Others echoed the concern. Some did so out of fear, others out of anger. But a few voices, fewer in number, yet no less firm, spoke in defense of caution. Ambassador Kian of the Thalvar leaned forward, his long hands steepled. The human did not activate the suit intentionally. The Judicator chose him. That is significant. The last bearer was selected for absolute alignment with its programming. If this Lex Carter is bonded, then it is by design, not by accident. But he is human, Rhys retorted. A species with barely a century in space. Unfiltered, undisciplined. This is not a symbol. It is a warning. As the council continued to debate, the vote was called. Lex Carter was to be summoned before the Concord Tribunal. The suit was to be studied. If it posed even the smallest threat, Lex was to be neutralized peacefully, if possible. Forcefully, if not. On the Zalaxi research station, Lex stood at the viewport of his temporary chamber, watching shuttles drift between stars. 2 Zalaxi guards stood nearby, quiet and wary. He could feel the tension in the air. The suit, now mostly dormant, responded only with faint pulses like a heartbeat. He had tried to speak to it again, to understand its intent, but it had grown quiet since the containment. Then, without warning, the voice returned. "The Concord seeks to erase unknowns, but you are not a threat. You are a test." A test of what? Lex asked aloud, though the guards gave no reaction. Of growth, of trust, of whether this galaxy is ready for something beyond fear. Lex didn't fully understand what that meant, but he felt it wasn't just about him. The Judicator wasn't trying to control him. It was watching. Waiting. Later, during his transfer to the Tribunal Moon, Lex traveled in a sealed diplomatic shuttle, surrounded by armed escorts from 3 different species. Even though the suit showed no aggression, no one trusted it, or him. Inside the shuttle, Lex sat in silence, accompanied by Dr. Tilvallen. "I thought you would try to escape," Tilvallen said. Studying Lex, "I thought about it," Lex admitted. "But that would prove them right." Tilvallen nodded slowly. "You are not like most humans I've met. You listen before you speak." Perhaps the suit saw that too. Lex looked out the viewport again. Maybe it just saw I was foolish enough to touch it. When the shuttle arrived, security doubled. The Tribunal Moon's inner halls were made of silver alloy and humming shield fields. Lex walked calmly, head high, though he could feel every eye on him. No chains were used. None were necessary. The suit would have rejected them. Inside the tribunal hall, the chamber rose above him like a cathedral. Dozens of Azorganic, synthetic, and hybrid focused on him. The room was silent. A voice echoed from the center. "Lex Carter of Earth. Do you understand the gravity of what you have become?" Lex nodded. "I think I'm starting to. You wear a relic of judgment. It cannot be separated from you. Tell us, do you intend to use it?" Lex paused, thinking carefully. "No. But if you force me to fight to survive, it won't let me lose." A hush swept through the room. The tribunal realized then they were not just facing a human wearing the suit. They were facing a suit that had chosen a human, and that, for some, was even more unsettling. Lex Carter had faced a dozen questions in the tribunal chamber, each more cautious than the last. But nothing shook him more than the silence that followed his final words. After the hearing, he was escorted to a private chamber, still watched. Still guarded, but now respected in a quiet, uneasy way. No one knew how to treat him. He sat alone in the middle of the room, arms crossed, feeling the weight of the suit as if it were both armor and expectation. Since the bonding, he hadn't been able to sleep much. The suit didn't let him feel tired the same way anymore. But tonight, something changed. The lights dimmed and his thoughts slipped inward. The suit pulsed, and a wave of warmth flooded. His body not physical, but mental. Like a memory not his own was unlocking behind his eyes. He didn't dream. He relived. He stood on a scorched battlefield. The sky was violet, burning at the edges with plasma fire. Towering machines fell in the distance, and around him, other Judicator suits stood in formation, faceless, silent, unstoppable. Lex could feel their purpose, their programming: observe, assess, neutralize. He wasn't Lex in this memory. He was Ro, the last true Judicator. Civilizations begged for mercy. Not all were spared. A voice echoed dolder than stars, layered and mechanical. Judgment complete. 17 planetary systems erased. Stability restored. And then silence. One by one, the other Judicators deactivated, their programming complete. Ro alone remained uncertain. Doubt had entered the code. Do they deserve extinction or simply understanding? That one question changed the course of everything, and then the vision ended. Lex gasped and sat up straight. His palms were shaking. The suit's surface rippled faintly, as if reacting to his shock. You remember? The suit said gently, not in warning, but in recognition. That was you. Lex whispered, Ro. I was the last to question, so I remained. Until you, Lex, stood, pacing the room slowly. Why show me that now? Because the tribunal fears judgment. But you have not judged. You have asked. That makes you different. Lex let the words settle. They think I'm a weapon. You can be, or you can be more. He turned to the viewport. The moon outside was quiet, orbiting the stars without care for the drama unfolding below. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news of the tribunal hearing was stirring unrest. Some civilizations, especially those with histories of surviving past precursor interventions, saw Lex not as a danger, but as a symbol. On the trade world of Varkesh, a group of scholars debated the ancient codes of the Judicators, claiming that the awakening of one could signal a shift in the galactic order. On the mining moons of Ylar Prime, workers rallied behind banners of Let the Human Speak, calling for the tribunal to hear Lex without fear. But not all voices were hopeful. An emergency summit was called by the Archal Dominion, a powerful bloc known for controlling much of the galactic security fleet. They issued a firm declaration. If the Concord cannot contain the Judicator, we will. A fleet began to mobilize. Back in his chamber, Lex was visited by someone unexpected: Ambassador Keon of the Thalvar. Tall, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes like molten gold, Keon was known for speaking rarely and wisely. Keon stepped into the chamber and bowed slightly. You have seen it, haven't you? Lex studied him, surprised. Seen what? The memory of the one before you, Ro. Lex nodded slowly. I don't want to become what he was. Keon smiled faintly. Then you won't. Because unlike Ro, you are human. Lex raised an eyebrow. And that means what, exactly? It means you question everything. Even your own purpose. That makes you the most dangerous kind of bearer. And perhaps the most necessary. As Keon left, the room fell quiet again. Lex sat in silence, the stars outside unmoving. The suit did not speak again, but Lex didn't need it to. He knew now that he wasn't just wearing a relic. He was carrying a legacy, and the galaxy had just begun to notice. The tribunal postponed its final ruling. Too many worlds were now watching, and public pressure grew from unexpected places. What was once a quiet courtroom debate had become the most closely followed event in the galaxy. Lex Carter remained at the center of it all, within the walls of the Tribunal Moon. Debates flared around his name. To some, he was an untested threat. To others, he was proof that the precursors had left behind more than fear, they had left a question. One that Lex now embodied. And questions, when asked by humans, never stayed unanswered for long. Then came the fire. At first, it seemed like a standard energy fluctuation. But when several containment grids suddenly dropped and security systems shut down across the east wing of the Tribunal Dome, everyone knew this was no accident. Alarms rang. Hallways darkened. Security forces scrambled. Lex, still confined to his chamber, stood and faced the door as it opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Tilvalon rushed in. His usual calm gone. We're under attack. Not from outside. Someone inside the tribunal. They've released a toxin into the air vents. Lex's eyes widened. Here, on the Tribunal Moon. Tilvalon nodded. They're targeting ambassadors. It's a false flag operation. Someone wants to frame your suit for the chaos. As if reacting to the threat, the Judicator suit shimmered and began to shift, slender panels folding, reshaping. A clear visor covered Lex's face and his body felt suddenly weightless. His vision brightened, and targeting data he didn't understand flickered across his view. Threat detected, the suit said calmly. Host will be protected. Before Lex could ask what that meant, his body moved. The next minutes were a blur of motion. Guided by the suit's precision, Lex sprinted through corridors lit by flickering red emergency lights. He passed stunned guards and overwhelmed medics, not attacking anyone, only moving forward. He reached the central diplomatic chamber just as a toxin release pod hissed open near the ventilation shaft. 2 ambassadors had already collapsed. The suit responded faster than Lex could think. Elter layer peeled away into a shimmering barrier, snapping over the fallen delegates. A purifier system activated with a high-pitched hum, neutralizing the gas in seconds. Other delegates stared. In stunned silence, the attackers, members of a rogue anti-human faction, tried to flee, but Lex moved faster. He didn't harm them. The suit's limbs extended, forming magnetic clamps that held them to the wall gently but immovably. Within 3 minutes, the threat was contained, and Lex stood at the center of the chamber, the very image of the thing. So many feared, calm, faceless, silent, and protective. Later, in the tribunal's secured medbay, Lex sat beside the recovering ambassadors he had saved. They were from rival world species that had never spoken peacefully before today. One of them, gentle-boned diplomat from the Tressa Union, reached for his hand. You didn't hesitate, she whispered. You could have escaped. You could have fought, but you saved us. Lex looked down at her fragile fingers. The suit made the decision to protect. I just agreed with it. She nodded. Then maybe the suit isn't what we thought it was. Maybe we aren't either. Then ours. New voices rose in Lex's defense. The footage spread across galactic networks. Adjudicator, saving lives. Disarming threats without violence, standing not as a judge but as a guardian, but enshadowed. Corners of the galaxy, others saw things differently. In the command ship of the Arkel Dominion fleet, Admiral Severa watched the footage in silence. Her jaw tightened. He's turning it into a symbol, she said to her bridge crew. One we cannot control. She turned toward her strategic officer. Prepare the fleet. The Concord won't act, we will. Back in his chamber, Lex sat quietly as Tilvalon placed a hand on the reinforced glass. You saved them all, Tilvalon said. Lex nodded slowly. And now? Someone's going to try to stop me for it. The suit pulsed once, a soft blue glow radiating from its chest plate. Let them try. it said. Aboard the Concord Library Araya colossal ringworld of memory and date, an archivist named Callan Threx opened a sealed vault that hadn't been accessed since the Silence Wars. It was not done lightly. Callan had seen the footage of the Judicator suit awakening, and something about the human wearing it had stirred old fears and old questions. Deep inside the vault, past brittle records and fractured holograms, he found the forgotten truth. The Judicators weren't built for conquest. They had been built for prevention. Centuries ago, the precursors created the Judicators to act only when a civilization reached a point of instability that threatened widespread collapse, planetary wars, resource extinction, corruption that could spread to others. The suits had one purpose: restore balance before chaos grew too large. But the archives held something more disturbing. It was not the Judicators who erased so many civilizations. It was the ruling empires of the Timofrade of the Judicators. Judgments who turned their fleets against the worlds marked for evaluation, erasing them before the suits could finish their assessments. They blamed the Judicators to protect themselves. The history had been rewritten, and now, for the first time in millennia, the last Judicator had awakened, and it had chosen not a galactic leader, not a synthetic overseer, but a human. One who refused to be a weapon. On the Tribunal Moon, Lex Carter sat with Ambassador Keon and Dr. Tilvalin, listening as a holographic feed played Callan Threx's discovery. So the Judicators weren't executioners, Lex said quietly. They were checks on the powerful. They saw danger and stepped in to prevent it. Keon nodded. That is what makes your presence so disruptive. You are a symbol of what cannot be controlled, Tilvalin added. And symbols are feared by those with too much to lose. Lex leaned back. The suit shifted slightly, as if responding to his thoughts. I'm not trying to make a statement, Lex said. But I'm not going to let people get hurt just because I touched something I wasn't supposed to. You did more than touch it, Keon said. You woke it. And now the galaxy has to decide what that means. Meanwhile, far from the Tribunal Moon, the Arkhold Dominion fleet entered high warp trajectory, their warships bearing toward Earth's outer colonies. Their message was clear: containment through force. In their war room, Admiral Severa stared at a model of the Judicator. Suit, we can't allow a human to represent judgment, she said. The Concorde has hesitated. We will not. Her officers nodded. Dozens of ships moved in silent formation, weapons powered and orders given. They weren't coming to talk. On Earth, panic spread as early warning systems lit up with the fleet's path. Human defense stations prepared for conflict, while diplomats scrambled to request Concorde intervention. Lex received the update from Tilvalin moments later. His jaw clenched, and the suit glowed softly at his chest. They're heading to Earth, Lex said. To make an example. You don't have to go, Tilvalin said. We can try to delay them. Lex looked up. They're not coming for me. They're coming because of what I represent. Kyan stepped forward. Then what will you do? Lex's voice was steady. I'm going to show them what this suit was really made for. The journey back to Earth's outer system was short thanks to a warp corridor granted by a group of smaller Concorde Line species now quietly supporting Lex. They had seen the suit protect. And they wanted to believe. Lex arrived before the Arkle fleet breached the final defense perimeter, hovering between Earth's far colony belt and the warships. Lex stood alone in the black, the suit glowing with pulsing light. The Arkle fleet halted. Lex opened a channel. You want judgment, he said, voice clear and calm. Then face someone who doesn't fear the truth. The Judicator suit shimmered, and for the first time since the Silence Wars, its full defensive protocols activated. Not to destroy, but to protect. A wall of light surrounded the colonies behind him. And in that moment, the galaxy saw something new. Not a weapon, not a judge, but a guardian. The wall of energy. Lex projected stood like a silent vow between the Arkle Dominion fleet and the vulnerable Earth colonies beyond. No shots were fired. Not yet. But tension buzzed like static across every ship, inside the command bridge of the Dominion flagship Hammer of Rule. Admiral Severa watched the Judicator on her display. One man, she said bitterly. One suit. One mistake, her second-in-command hesitated. Admiral, the colonies have deployed no weapons. He's standing alone. If we attack, it will not be seen as justice. It doesn't need to be, Severa replied. It needs to be final. She gave the order. The Arkle fleet moved into formation. Weapons primed. Engines flared. Lex hovered calmly at the center of the confrontation, light pulsing from the suit like a heartbeat. He could see their numbers, he could see their fear. But more than that, he could see the eyes of those behind the fleets. Front lines, some of the crew didn't believe in this fight. The suit spoke. Defense systems ready. Minimum lethal output, 0. Suppression mode engaged. Lex took a deep breath. No one dies. Not today. The first volley came without warning, high-yield disruptors, designed to tear through shields and armor alike. The Judicator responded. Instantly, curved panels formed from thin air, catching each blast and absorbing the energy. The power redirected into a wave of kinetic pulse, knocking the attackers' guidance systems off course without damaging their hulls. Lex moved faster than light, weaving through the chaos, placing barriers where they were needed, and scrambling weapons before they fired. He wasn't attacking, he was unmaking aggression. The suit shimmered like liquid starlight as it danced across the battlefield. Disabling without destroying, shielding without striking. Across the galaxy, millions watched. The livestream broadcast leaked from an independent probe drone. The image of a human, alone in space, holding off a fleet not with fire but with control. Precision and mercy shocked even the harshest critics. On the fringe world of Maveth, factory workers gathered around a display in silence. On the water domes of Cellar 9, children asked their teachers why the Judicator didn't hurt anyone, and on the Concord moon, many who once doubted now watched with new understanding. Inside the Dominion fleet, morale crumbled. Crew members refused orders. A captain powered down his ship's weapons mid-fight. Another called for retreat. Severa's voice boomed across the internal network. This is a threat to the Concord, to every system that believes in order. But her crew had seen enough. They weren't fighting a war. They were fighting a symbol of restraint and reason of force stronger than their weapons, 'cause it chose not to use them. In the quiet after the final blast had been deflected, Lex opened a broadcast channel to the entire Dominion fleet. I didn't come to fight, he said, voice calm and even. I came to prove that strength doesn't always look like destruction. He paused, then added, this suit doesn't make me powerful. It gives me a choice, and I choose to protect not because I have to, but because I can. No response came. But one by one, the Dominion ships began to power down. The battle, if it could be called, that was over. Later, Lex landed on one of the outer colony platforms. A crowd had gathered. No one cheered. They didn't need to. Their silence was respect. Small child stepped forward and asked, "Are you going to keep wearing it?" Lex knelt down and smiled. As long as there are people who need someone to stand between them and harm. From the edge of the crowd, a voice called out, "You didn't just stop the fleet. You started something." They were right in quiet corners of the galaxy. New voices rose. Worlds that had never dared question the Concord systems before now called for reform. Movements formed. Forgotten species spoke up. The silenced were no longer silent. And at the center of it all stood a single human, wrapped in the legacy of the precursors. Changing the galaxy not through fear, but through choice. The aftermath of the standoff left the galaxy trembling not from destruction, but from revelation. The Arkel Dominion's retreat marked a turning point. For the first time in centuries, the Concord's fragile unity cracked, revealing deep fractures in the grand halls of the Concord Council. Representatives gathered under a vaulted ceiling that shimmered with star maps. The room buzzed with tension. Voices low but urgent. Ambassador Keon stood beside Lex, watching as factions debated fiercely. The human must be controlled. One senator from the Andari insisted, voice sharp. This suit is a weapon no one can contain. We must dismantle it. Another, a dignitary from the Uvron Collective, countered. No, we should learn from him. The Judicator was never a tool of war, but a shield. His actions proved it. Lex remained silent, his suit blending subtly with the darkened room. He felt the weight of some hopeful, others suspicious. The debate raged for hours, with proposals flying across the chamber. Some called for immediate disarmament of the suit, fearing what a human could do if truly unleashed. Others argued for granting Lex diplomatic immunity, recognizing that he was more than just a bearer of alien armor. He was a symbol of change. When the council finally called for a vote, the chamber fell silent. Lex looked at Keon, who nodded quietly. The result shocked many. The council was evenly split. Half demanded Lex's removal and the destruction of the Judicator suit. Half demanded his protection and the right to continue as a guardian. No decision was made. Instead, the council declared a temporary suspension of Lex's trial pending a new investigation into the Judicators' true purpose and a re-evaluation of the Concord's role. The galaxy was left in limbo. Outside the council chambers, protests erupted on worlds where humans lived and worked. Supporters gathered under banners, reading "Justice for the Guardian" and "Humanity stands for peace." On others, fear grew. "Humanity overstepped," whispered a nervous merchant on Ephron Prime. What if they decide who lives and who dies next? The divide was not just political. It was cultural. One night, Lex stood alone on the observation deck of the Tribunal Moon, staring at the stars. The suit's soft glow wrapped around him like a second skin. He remembered Rose Memory the Ancient Judicator, who had questioned the orders that led to destruction, and he thought of the people who had believed in him. He whispered, "I am not your judge. I am your choice." Suddenly, the suit's interface pulsed gently. A new transmission host. Lex tapped the controls. A message appeared, encrypted but clear. It was from the archivist Callan Threx. There is more to the story. The precursors left a failsafe. You must find it. The message sent a ripple through Lex's thoughts. A failsafe. Something the ancient creators left behind, waiting to be found. If the Judicator suit was a relic of judgment, then what was this failsafe? Lex knew one thing. His journey was far from over. The next morning, Lex met with Keon and Dr. Tilvalen. "We must find this failsafe," Keon said gravely. "It may be the key to healing the Concordor, destroying it." Tilvalen nodded. "And we don't have much time. If the council remains divided, factions will grow restless." Lex clenched his fists. "Then we need to act." As they prepared for the quest, a shadow moved in the depths of the Tribunal Moon. Not all were pleased with Lex's rise. In a hidden chamber, a figure watched the news feeds with cold eyes. "The human wears the suit," the figure whispered. "But the Precursor's plan is far from finished." The corridor was silent, except for the soft hum of the Tribunal Moon's life systems. Lex Carter led the small expedition. Team Ambassador Keon, Dr. Tilvalen, and a pair of trusted Concord engineers toward the coordinates revealed in Callan Threx's encrypted message. The air felt charged. the weight of history pressing down. Here in the ancient precursor vault, hidden deep beneath the tribunal moon's surface, the answer to the Judicator's true purpose awaited. Lex's fingers brushed the control panel embedded in the wall. It responded instantly, sliding open, to reveal a chamber lined with crystalline structures, glowing faintly with an inner light dot at the center. A pedestal held an orb, swirling with stars and galaxies in miniature. Keon stepped forward, eyes wide. This ... This is the failsafe. Dr. Telvalin adjusted his glasses. A repository of knowledge and power. The precursor's final safeguard to guide any bearer of the Judicator suit. Lex reached out, and the orb floated into his palm. Instantly, visions filled his mind, ancient histories, warnings, and most importantly, a choice. The precursors had created the Judicators not to judge, but to guide. They had built the suits as a beacon, a reminder that power must always be balanced by wisdom, and that the right to decide the fate of others is a burden no one should bear lightly. As the revelations unfolded, Lex felt a new understanding settle in his bones. The suit was not a weapon, not a judge. It was a symbol of what humanity and all species could be when they chose compassion over conquest, protection over domination. The orb pulsed gently. A voice echoed in Lex's mind, not commanding, but inviting. Will you carry this legacy? Will you show the galaxy that strength lies in choice? Lex's answer was clear. Back in the council chamber, news of the discovery spread like wildfire. The divided factions found new reason to pause. To reconsider, Lex stood before the assembly, his suit shining with the light of the fail-safe orb. I do not wear this suit to judge or to punish, he said, voice steady and strong. I wear it to remind us all that power without wisdom is empty. That strength is not measured by how many enemies we destroy, but by how many lives we protect. He looked across the room at the council members, some still wary, others visibly moved. The precursors left us a choice. We can continue down a path of fear and division, or we can step forward together. Slowly, one by one, the council members rose in unanimous agreement. The decision was made. Lex Carter would be granted the title of Guardian, Ambassador, a new role created to represent all who sought peace, protection, and understanding. The Judicator suit would no longer be feared, but honored as a symbol of unity. Outside, across the galaxy, celebrations erupted. Worlds long divided found common ground. New alliances formed. Movements inspired by Lex's courage grew stronger. On Earth's outer colonies, children played beneath banners that read, "Choose strength. Choose wisdom." And somewhere in the stars, the ancient legacy of the precursors finally found a worthy bearer. Lex stood once more on the observation deck of the tribunal moon, the orb glowing softly at his side. The galaxy was far from perfect. Challenges remained. Shadows lingered. But now, humanity and the Judicator suit stood not as instruments of fear, but as beacons of hope. Lex smiled, the suit's light reflecting in his eyes. Because when humanity wakes, even the galaxy's oldest fears begin to fade, and a new era begins. The end.